fucking around. So he wants a little pause first. And then 3, 2, 1. Welcome to episode 25 of the RDO podcast. It's a very special one today. Jason's been subbed out with a new, but I hope good friend of mine, Josh Barnett. Hello, Josh.
Hey. Morning, Alex. Thank you for inviting me.
When did we meet? It's probably only a year ago, wasn't it?
No, it was a little bit longer ago than that, I would say.
Yeah, so we worked together, working for the big machine.
Yep.
And I think that you're probably the only other person I know in my network that has as nerdy a view on cars as what I do.
Yeah, that would be pretty fair to say.
yeah. So I think we hit it off.
Yeah, pretty much immediately.
Yeah. Because
I think you tend to find each other. Like as soon as you put a few breadcrumbs out and sort of test the waters.
Yeah.
And obviously, I think we've got very common interests in some very unusual and not universally loved cars.
That's probably the nicest way to put it. Not universally loved cars. Everyone can love a supercar.
Yeah, correct.
Everyone can love everyone can love the top of the range, whatever it is. But it takes. Oh, but there's also those people out there that only love one particular make and model of a car.
Correct. Yes.
No matter what they.
Which is infuriating.
Yeah. So I think I'd like to think we're on a very level cusp, and I think we can objectively appreciate certain vehicles that a lot of people probably don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I'm also wearing a t-shirt that I bought off the internet the other day, which is a Boost Cruising one.
Love it.
The audio people can't hear it. Reason being, there has been a resurgence on Facebook. Some started this page, or I only just got onto this page, and they've been posting all the pictures up from 2002, 2003, 2004, which was like the absolute car scene for my age.
Oh, yeah.
And especially on the Gold Coast. And the reason why I wore it today is because it's Nate's first birthday Tuesday, but we're having his birthday thing at Broadwater Parklands.
The spiritual home.
Which in 2003 was the spiritual home of which was called the Broady Car Park, which is where all the car meets were. So I'm repping the shirt for that, because I think that, and you're not on Facey, which is a good thing, but it is, in my opinion, the happiest place on the internet at the moment is the Boost Cruising.
Oh, really?
It is so good. Just photos and reminiscing of old times. The craziest cars, stupid amounts of fiberglass, stupid amounts of chrome, loose-fitting jeans, stud belts.
Oh.
Like, what's the thin, like, sunglass style? Remember that style in the 03s?
Yeah,
I can't remember what it's called, but number plates that you'd never be allowed now.
Yep. Like a mate of mine, he had 91 NCH for 9-inch.
I saw one that was like an MX-5, which had the one with two girls driving a NA MX-5 with the number plate bitches.
Oh, lovely.
And I was like,
how good's that?
How good's that? And someone made a good point. And so you were on that scene too, but you were obviously on the Brisbane side.
Correct.
Now, a lot of people had said the scene was very different than to what it is now, in that no matter how crazy or whacked out your car was, there's a very positive vibe around vehicle modifying and cruising. And
I think that you're sort of in that. See, I was sort of on the periphery a bit because I'm not a person that necessarily would modify
neither
a car.
I'm the same.
I like a car to be factory standard down to the head unit. And obviously in those times, as you said, it was chrome, it's massive rims, and the head unit was the first thing to go.
Yeah.
You know, because it was big stereos, it was subs and all that sort of stuff. But
isn't it funny how that technology hasn't changed? Like sound equipment, besides Apple CarPlay and Android Auto.
Yeah.
The same, you can buy the same Alpine head units that I used to run in the early noughties.
100%.
No additional functionality.
No, I'm pretty sure that aisle in Autobahn hasn't changed.
It's the same display.
It's got the same stuff in it. Exactly the same stuff.
But like even the touchscreen stuff hasn't really progressed. It was the same.
Not
It was far more expensive then.
Yes, correct.
$3,500 for a head unit or something.
Yeah.
But the graphics are no better.
Not really, no.
Now,
Yeah.
So, but I'm very much like you. My friends were the modifiers. I was not a modifier.
Yeah. It's one of those things like you can appreciate it, and as you said, now you look at photos of it, and it has dated horribly. You know, it was the style of the time, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And again, it's not one of those things where I would have seen a car as somebody's, put a body kit or a big sound system, and again, as you said, it's not something that there was a lot of not love, but people could. Express themselves through their car, and it was a reasonably safe space.
Yeah, it was appreciated.
Yeah, exactly right. I judged them silently, not to their face.
Which is how we should all judge each other.
Correct.
Yeah. How do you feel like? What about the car scene now? What about the modifying car scene now?
I don't know, because again, now that obviously getting older, I'm getting further and further removed. I'd forgotten about boost cruising until. Probably only about a week or two ago when I accidentally stumbled back on the website. Like, I'd forgotten I even had an account.
That's so funny. He told me the story yesterday.
Yeah.
And like, I showed him the shirt, like I had the shirt bagged up. And then he goes, "Oh, I've got a story about that." And do you want to tell us what?
So essentially, I was cruising classifieds, more or less, not for casual encounters, but for vehicles. And a link came up on Google. I was deep in Google, probably third, fourth page, as I said to you the other days.
The Wasteland.
The Wasteland, yeah. I think I'm the first person to delve that deep.
Yeah. A lawless wasteland.
Correct,
on
yeah.
page 6.
Well, the lawless wasteland presented me with an opportunity to buy a Toyota Hilux, which is what I was actually searching for. And clicked on the link, and it took me straight to boost cruising, because I, again... A, forgot the site existed.
Yeah.
B, forgot that there were classifieds for people to buy and sell amongst themselves. And found a gem of a Hilux. And but to access the contact number of the person selling it, you had to log in, had to have an account. Like, that's easy. I'll just, use a burner email.
Yeah.
Create a fake account, get the number, happy days. But I've got a standard, not a fake email, it is a real email, but it's a standard email for...
like a spam email account.
Correct, yeah. So if you've got to put something down, then all the junk can just go to that. Anyway, so punch that in, register, already got an account.
How's that? That is
20 years ago. I'm like,
that is so good.
Couldn't remember the password, unfortunately, but and it was a scam, so the Hilux didn't exist. Well, it probably existed, but...
Well, it could be a sign of the fact that scamming has become so much more sophisticated, but that boost cruising website probably has not.
Correct. Or that ad was from 2003. No one's ever taken it down.
But it wouldn't have been, though, because the price...
Oh. No, the price was probably from 2003, which is the reason I was so excited. I thought I've got myself a rob here.
Well, that's probably a really great segue to what I think our first segment is, which is like what kind of oddities have you trawled? What vehicular oddities have come out in the nets in the last week?
In the nets, alrighty. Well, that car that I was specifically looking for, which isn't... It's gaining popularity now. So that was a Hilux, but the very last of the Japanese-built Hiluxes, so 2004.
Okay.
Before they went and...
Thailand, right?
Correct, yeah, manufactured in Thailand. So turbo diesel SR5, Japanese, so that appealed to me.
Yep.
But outside of that, I'm really getting the Japanese. I'm on the bandwagon. I'm loving cars from the 90s in particular.
Mm-hmm.
So MR2s, an MR2 Bathurst edition came up very recently.
Wow.
2-owner car. Mild kilometres, 140,000, original everything.
Yeah.
Radio and all that sort of
It's
stuff.
strange to see them original.
Very much so.
And the mileage is strange too, because the biggest problem with Japanese sports cars, especially of the 90s, is that they're so well built that no one was afraid to drive them every single day. So
Correct.
you often see them with 300,000 Ks.
Exactly right. And they still run. But I think that's also part of their charm. If you can, as opposed to a traditional classic where you might keep it in the garage, and obviously it's got very questionable reliability. You don't want to leave it anywhere. In case it gets damaged.
A lot of, like, Italian cars have got low mileage because they're spent most of their time in the air at a mechanic's getting worked on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So they're pristine. Haven't turned a wheel. But I think at least you can have a car and you could potentially use it as a daily car. The air conditioning is going to be cold. As you said, everything's going to work.
I have a funny story about the aircon. When I worked in wholesale years ago, I had like a little corner upstairs where all my cars, like the real shit heaps where they were. Good. And there was like 4 cars in front of... I needed the car in the far corner. And that car was a 1996 Corolla manual, 360,000 Ks.
Oh, lovely.
I can't remember what the cars behind it were, but they were far newer, far lower mileage, and in better condition. Yet the Corolla was the only one that had cold air conditioning.
Yeah. Well, how about this? Traded a car yesterday afternoon, late, like stayed back a couple of hours. Yeah. The car is a 2001 Corolla.
Yep.
Not a skerrick with paint left on it.
Yeah.
Door handles snapped off. Interior panels just lying on the floor. The key doesn't unlock the driver's door. There's rust through the bonnet. Absolute turd of a car.
Yeah.
Hop in it, start it, freeze cold aircon.
It's crazy. Denso, right? Denso systems.
Yeah.
Whoever
he's over-engineered it. Whoever Mr. Denso was.
Yeah, Mr. Denso. Yeah, you've missed a treat. Like, I just replaced the air conditioning condenser in the BMW.
Oh no!
And it's like a full dash out, a whole day's job.
Yeah.
I think it cost me $1,800 or something.
And is it freezing cold?
It's not Denso cold.
No, correct.
It's cold, but it's not Denso cold.
Well, my current vehicle, the up exclamation mark.
The Volkswagen up exclamation mark.
That's right, the Volkswagen. On a hot day, that German AC.
Well, the engine size, like, it probably doesn't have a lot of ponies to give up to the air conditioning compressor.
Unfortunately not, no.
Okay, so the MR2, how much was the MR2?
Obviously the vehicle has sold.
Yep.
27 grand, which is up there.
It's up there, but it's only going to go...
Correct. The problem with these cars is just simply finding them.
Yeah.
And finding them in that condition.
Yeah.
Because trying to source parts, like very limited... Like, number one, they didn't sell huge amounts in this country to begin with. And then to have a model that, obviously at Bathurst's limited...
non-turbo, right? They're a non-turbo.
Correct.
Aussie delivered.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of imports.
Correct. Yeah. But even they're going up in value.
And I think
the days of having grey imported vehicles being, sort of kicked in terms of value, I think that's sort of almost gone.
Well, if anything, it's the other way around, and the reason why is because the USA is now allowed to import 25-year-old Japanese imports, like we are.
Yeah.
So overnight, the prices have gone parabolic. We're talking
absolutely.
R34 GTRs going for $600,000. That was $60,000.
Yes.
What else has gone mental?
Or any Z cars, 240, 260Z.
Yeah, they've gone crazy. But you got to think, you got a population of, what's America, 320 million people, and there's probably only 2 million people that want those cars, but there's 2 million buyers now that they never had before.
Yeah, correct.
So I had a guy try and say the same thing about my imported Mercedes. Oh, it's an import, they're going to bag it. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just send it, I'll send it to another country. They'll appreciate it, they don't care. The car's still built in the same factory.
Exactly right. But they're all imported. It still came out of the Mercedes factory. It's built on the same line as all the other ones. Yeah. Okay, yes, it wasn't originally sold in this market. But, there's only very, very minor changes for different markets.
Yeah. And it's not like, the one big difference for Japanese cars that were built in Japan for their domestic market was the odometer.
Oh, yeah.
The 180 kilometre limited odometer. So Japan decided to try and save its people from themselves. Put a power cap.
Yeah, I think 206 kilowatt.
Yeah, so you're only allowed to advertise 206 kilowatts as a max output, and there was cars that had way more, but you only advertised 206, and the odometers only go to 180 kilometers an hour because who needs to go any faster?
Well, that's right.
Hashtag boost cruising.
Yeah, that's right. And you can't kill yourself doing 145.
Yeah, or 60, 62, or whatever. Yeah, so... Okay, so the MR2 was the one that... Yeah, I missed that. I didn't see it. So
MR2 came up. Very early WRX as well.
Oh, yeah.
1994 model.
Oh,
so very, very start of them. Again, just a good, clean, original car.
What colour?
Red.
Yeah.
Looks a really, really good thing. That is still currently listed.
Yeah.
I think it wants mid-20s from memory for that one there.
Yeah.
Similar Ks, 140.
Yeah, okay.
But they're a very, very basic car. If you remember back to very early WRX, like yours was what, a 99?
Mine was a 99, yeah.
Yeah, so they become a lot.
That was horrific inside, except for the fact that it had a cool steering wheel.
Yeah,
but relatively cool seats.
That car is miles more advanced than the early car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they got completely different dash and all sorts of stuff in it. So those very early cars are very, very basic.
Well, I have to say that car, so that... they call them gens? Is it the first gen WRX?
Yeah, I think GC8.
Yeah, so that 90... when did it start? 94, 95?
Yeah, 94.
So I remember as a young boy, that car made a very profound effect on me because at the time, like my dad was big into cars, he had every single Wheels magazine, Motor magazine, and we used to read all the magazines.
Yeah.
And it was very much, the Australian scene was very much about Ford and Holden. Correct. They really dominated. And they had a lot of sports offerings, Tigford had some cool stuff, HSV had some cool stuff, but that was like the real top dog. And it wasn't until that WRX came out that started wiping the floor with these cars.
Yeah, 100%.
And then there was a rich kid on the mountain where I grew up, and he had one. I wasn't old enough to drive at this point, but I remember seeing this thing drive around and going, oh, like that's cool.
Yeah.
Because your dad and all your dad's mates, they want big V8 rear-wheel drive things.
That's exactly right.
Here's this little 2-litre 4-cylinder, which they would scoff at.
Yep.
Is now, running rings around them.
Oh, 100%.
So that car did make a lot of effect, and that's why I had to wait till I was 32 years old to afford one. Yeah, because they weren't cheap. They weren't a cheap car.
No, they were 40 grand.
$40,000 in
the mid-90s.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of money, because that would have been SS Commodore, or XR8 Falcon, or very close to.
Yeah.
But I think what you said, it's a very valid point, that it was probably, and I'm exactly the same as you, like, I think we're only about a year apart in age, and that was the car I aspired to own.
Yeah.
Like, it was, I think because it was, as you said, it was very generational.
Yeah.
Everyone had, like, your dad had a VS Club Sport. My dad had a HSV of that era as well.
Yeah.
And it was very much, that's what they've always had. They've always had big V8s.
Yeah, rear-wheel drive.
And that's what you wanted to own. You wanted an Aussie muscle car.
Yeah.
And then I think, obviously, the PlayStation generation.
Ah, yes.
And we started seeing more interesting, I guess, offerings.
Yeah.
And you got turbocharging, you've got all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
Sort of around that period, you had
all-wheel steer
and some Honda product. But yeah, WRX was a massive, massive turning point. And we were very fortunate here in this country that we were the first market outside of Japan to actually have those vehicles.
Yeah, okay.
Because we were used as a bit of a test market. And same with STI when they eventually came out in 99 and 00.
Yeah.
The first market to have it. So, extremely cool car.
We're not the test market now. New Zealand seems to be the test market. So they get a lot of new cars that we that we never have access to. Which is strange because I think there's 60 brands, or 59 brands now the Holden's got, represented in Australia, which is one of the most densely occupied markets, which is insane. Like
Absolutely it is.
we fucked it up for ourselves. Like we really, really had. And
Yeah.
I feel a lot like we really, really had. And
Yeah.
I feel a lot like Aussie's obsession with cheap has really hurt ourselves and our manufacturing and all that thing. Oh, obviously there was a lot of things behind the scenes that ruined our ability to manufacture stuff. But
Yeah.
I think us always wanting cheaper.
Yeah.
And having the shits when that cheaper thing is crap.
Yeah. And I think the romance of a brand as well. Like it's one of those things when something that's domestic. You know, think about like, yeah, even like beers and stuff like that. Like people thought it was more upmarket or more exclusive to have something that was international. And I think the same thing happened. And again, it's probably our age group where, again, you didn't aspire to own a Holden or a Ford.
Yeah.
Whereas my dad did, and his dad did.
Yeah.
And you had that, you know, you're a Holden family or you're a Ford family.
Yeah.
Well, now, you know, you could have been a Renault family, a Saab family, all these brands. So you had a lot more choice, I guess. And I think people drifted away from those domestic cars. Plus, as you said, there's many factors. Obviously, they didn't keep up with the trends of what buyers actually wanted out of a vehicle.
Yeah.
You know,
it was a big mistake, and I think too we only looked at our own domestic market, and we probably, if Holden more so because Ford was a bit smarter. Ford has survived all this and probably will be a manufacturer because they're very, in America especially, they're miles ahead. Like they are thinking and planning ahead.
Yep.
GM never seemed to have a plan for Holden. But if Holden could have created a car that was truly international, we had the brains.
Yep.
We had the money, like as in GM could have written a check for us to play in that international market. But for whatever reason, we just never hit the mark in terms of quality or forethought on, you know, SUVs. We're too late to SUV party.
Correct, yeah.
I read an article, and I remember reading it when it first came out. Remember they had that VT concept hybrid powertrain.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It had a solar panelled roof. It had skinny tires. I can't remember if it was hydrogen, but it was a petrol 4-cylinder mated to an electric drivetrain using lead acid batteries back then.
Yeah.
We had that concept. That was an Aussie built concept.
Yeah, sure.
So we have all the brains, and then, you know, Toyota at the same time went and did that, and is now
world leader.
An absolute world leader.
Yeah.
And I've got to give them credit too. They predicted things that no one else did. So when everyone went diesel, Toyota said, no, diesel's not the right thing to do. Hybrid's the future, and electrification is the future.
Yeah, correct.
They were right.
100%.
So we kind of we've missed some opportunities there, and you always need in business. You always need to look at the future and not just the now.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay. And I think I always thought they missed an opportunity. Like you mentioned, Ford. Ford as a brand is global. They don't. Yes, they've got some. You know, they've got other
Lincoln and
correct. They've got other brands and stuff like that, and Mercury and whatever else. But with General Motors, I found it very confusing that every market they would brand their car differently.
Yeah.
I feel as though as a brand, it would have been a lot stronger. To have an international brand.
Yep.
You know, whether or not they just chose, you know, Chevrolet or whatever the case was, which is obviously very well known and an older brand that people can get on board.
Yep.
And they probably should have just branded their cars that instead of having Vauxhalls and Opals and Holdens in this country.
Vauxhall and Opel competing in the same friggin' territory.
Correct.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And was the big cull after the global financial crisis, where what did they lose? Pontiac. I think it was 3 monikers they lost. As part of a consolidation. But then in our Australian market, they decided to bring back Opel.
Yes.
So we're going to get rid of a brand over there because we're going to streamline it. Yeah, that's a smart idea.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
But we're going to introduce an idea that didn't work the first time under a stronger brand. We're going to reintroduce a brand.
Yeah, with the same cars.
Yeah. I mean, my upbringing was all Holden. Like I started my career in 2004 in Holden dealerships. I've been basically attached to a Holden dealership my whole life.
Yeah.
And I just remember seeing, like, I used to be very patriotic about the brand,
Yep.
But I just remember them going, this is stupid. Like these, and then they bring in the Korean product, which sucked at the time.
Yeah, I think that was really putting the nail in the coffin at that point.
Yeah. It was definitely
the...
early on. We think it's a modern day thing, like it happened recently, but no, it's been crumbling for years.
I mean, Aviva and horrible car.
TK brand Epica, like Epica, to think that, like they were touting Epica as being a Commodore replacement.
Yeah.
I remember doing the training on it.
Yeah.
And I just drove the car and sat in the car and thought, well, the black plastic was horrible. Like, absolutely. It's so budget basic, gross.
Yeah, and not even styled nicely. Like, it's one thing, obviously, they've got to make a product to a price point.
Yeah.
So, your materials, okay, you might have some rougher plastics and this and that, but at least make it look good.
Yeah.
It was ugly and cheap.
And it went up against Mondeo, which was a good car.
Yeah.
Now, underappreciated in Australia, but...
Very well, underappreciated really globally. Outside of, realistically, the UK was really going.
They get it.
Very strong market for that vehicle, but that's another car that's gone as well. Gone the way of the dodo.
So, the car that I had looked at, so you had said Japanese of the 90s. I kind of broke the rules a bit.
Yeah, okay.
But I broke the rules, but I kind of didn't.
Yeah.
I looked at cars in Japan in the 90s.
Oh, lovely.
Right. So I've read every car in car sales, I think, and Marketplace, and there was nothing crazy interesting that really popped out to me. Yep. So I jumped on GooNet Exchange, which is basically the Japanese carsales.com. Mm-hmm. And I was having a trawl through there. And again, I think they understand that the value of their cars has just gone through the roof. Anything 25 years old is gone crazy. So I was looking at things like, I know Australia has a real obsession with that 4.2 Nissan diesel motor.
Yeah.
So I was looking at Nissan Safaris.
Yep.
And they've got beautiful cars there, 120,000 Ks.
Yep.
Like 20 grand.
Yeah.
Now, I'd love to bring one of those in. Problem is, I don't think the buyer of that car has access to, say, 30 grand finance. You can't finance
it.
Yeah, so it's probably too heavy.
Yeah.
But I found the Nix over there.
Oh.
So the cars that I think are kind of orphaned in Japan are the old Mercedes product.
Mm.
So E320s, 1995 E320s, 10 grand, done 20,000 Ks.
Yeah.
I think that's my next daily. I think I'm going to get one of those. Yeah. It's the kind of car that, look, I don't think I want to buy a 20,000 K car. I think I want to buy a 120,000 K car.
Yeah, sure.
Only because I don't want to... I just want to drive it.
Yeah.
I just want to drive it. But I think an E-Class, super basic, cloth trimmer, it's going to do everything. They're bulletproof in terms of reliability.
Yeah, they are.
And they're not fast, but I don't need to go fast. I live in the city, drive around in the city. But I think they're a beautiful looking car.
Yeah.
I think they are exceptionally well put together.
They are.
And I just think there's something cool about dailying something weird.
Yeah. I agree. It's difficult to try and find that car that is got some age to it.
Yeah.
That you can actually daily.
Yeah.
And enjoy and as you said, still be reliable.
Well, I've been driving these S-Classes that I've got, and I love them, but they're just a bit too big.
Yeah.
In a practical sense, because it's literally just me and Tarsha on the car at any given time. And
yeah, you need a chauffeur when you got an S-Class.
Yeah. Do you want to be one?
Yeah.
I need to start selling some more cars to get to that stage. But so I was looking at those, but I was also looking at Toyota Century.
Ah, yes.
So they go for horrific amounts here in Australia, but they're very cheap in Japan.
Yeah.
So V8, what do they call it? It's the second generation, which is a V8.
Yep.
There are V12 offerings in the third generation,
wow. Okay.
but they don't fall into the 25-year rule.
Yeah, sure.
So you're going to pay a stack of tax on it, which I'm probably not keen on.
Yep.
But the old Century, so just a bit of the history about that. That was basically made so that rich people in Japan business owners, politicians could drive around in a car that's luxurious, but shows some nationalistic pride. So an S-Class would have been the standard.
Yes.
But you couldn't be a Japanese businessman doing business in Japan and be driving a German car.
Yeah.
That was not cool.
Yep.
They were good like that.
Yes.
Not like us.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was about to say it's 100% where we failed.
Yeah.
You know.
I remember when they spoke about it. It was, what's her face?
Anna Bligh.
Anna Bligh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of Chrysler.
Yeah, she dogged the whole thing. Oh, when they become more fuel efficient, and she went diesel.
Yeah.
Which all turns out to be way worse than what
Absolutely,
was anyway.
But realistically, it should have been, you know, any government department really had to buy an Australian-produced car. You know, because it's no good throwing money and funding at the manufacturing sector, but then you don't actually support and buy that product.
Yeah,
like, what's the point? It's absolutely, you know, it's ludicrous.
It is ludicrous.
So yeah, no, I can completely appreciate it.
So when I really wanted to look on that GooNet to try and find some of the sports cars, but they're just becoming unattainable now.
But I think, because I love early Lexus.
Oh, yeah.
So along the same line, essentially, because obviously they were not sold in Japan because they had vehicles like the Century that you're talking about. So Lexus as a brand was a purely export brand.
Yeah.
You know, originally North America, essentially, with focus on there. So, but again, they're just so beautifully built.
Toyota Celsior is the Toyota equivalent of an LS400.
Yes. Yep.
And you can buy like 30 and 40,000 K cloth versions of that car in Japan.
Yep.
And they'll probably owe you landed 10s, probably worth 15 here.
Yeah, it's an awful lot of car.
It's a lot of car. Well, I had that. Did you see I had a 430, LS430? 140K LS430.
I remember you telling me about it, but I didn't get to see it, no.
Beautiful car.
Yeah,
the only problem was, when I put it through the workshop, one of the steering arm, like control arm bushes had gone, and there's a bush. It's huge. It's like the size of a Milo tin, you know?
Yep.
And you can't buy the bush anymore. It's
Ah.
too old. So I had to buy a whole like cross member from from Melbourne. Cost me $1,000 when.
Yeah.
But in saying that, it's a rubber bushing. They're entitled to go. That's not a reliability thing.
No, exactly right. That's just age and...
Yeah, but that was a beautiful car to
Yeah,
drive. Beautiful car.
Yeah. And I love the tech from the 90s in those cars, because they were a real Christmas tree. They had everything in them at the time.
Yeah.
And you go back through them now and you see what was considered luxurious by today's standard, and it's fantastic. You know, everything's got knobs and dials for the most simple things. You know, obviously no touchscreens or anything like that.
But touchscreens suck. So this is what people haven't realised. Bring the touchscreen, the all-in-one touchscreen, when cars are autonomous. When you can actually physically look at the item and look at the object and touch it. When you're driving, you need a knob or a dial.
Oh, yeah, you do, because it's the feel.
It's the muscle memory, and
you can't feel a screen,
Yeah.
so you don't really know what you're pressing, what
Yeah.
you're touching, unless you're staring at it.
Yeah.
Which obviously then you're taking your eyes off the road. And it's bizarre that you can have, you know, you can't mount your phone, yet you can have an iPad-sized screen or bigger in your car.
Yeah.
And you're allowed to touch that and play with that as much as you like.
It's insane.
You know.
It's insane. So now I do think some cars overdo the buttons and dials. Remember the latest, like the Opel Astra, latest one, and where it's got dial, it's got a screen, but it's got this massive console full of buttons, and there's buttons that kind of duplicate and triplicate themselves as well.
Yeah.
And then you can negate all those by just using the center dial to find options in there. I'm like, oh, you haven't thought of how that is supposed to fit together. Whereas in Japan, it's like AM,
yes,
FM,
yeah, correct,
volume. You know, it was very easy.
And I think Porsche a couple of years ago fell into that trap as well. If you saw like Panameras and whatnot, they just had a sea of buttons through the center console, and it just, to me, it just looks untidy as well.
So why have you got a radio, but your radio controls are in the center console? Put the radio where the radio is so my mind thinks, okay, where I look at radio options is where all the radio options should be. But Panamera was, there's your radio up there, but your volume and channel up and down is down on the center console next to the gear stick.
Yeah.
That's just bad design. Yeah, I'm not a fan. And it's funny to think that, like, BMW iDrive was probably a good solution, but back then everyone was like, this thing is crazy, one dial that controls everything.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, actually now that's like.
But you're only ever doing one thing at a time. Like when you're pressing multiple buttons at any given time, you're not. You're pressing one at a time. Yeah. So I never found iDrive to be that irritating personally. I found it, quite intuitive for the time, you know. It sort of never bothered me. But what gems did you find on anything good on?
Well, so the one
in terms of Celsius or
the one thing that I did find that, in a segment that we'll go on to, because I want to make this a bit of a I want to create a bit of an archive about some pricing data.
Yeah, sure.
So I have successfully picked out in my past what future classics are going to be, and it's not what people think. I've got mates that just think it had to be a good car in the day. If it was a good car in the day, then it will go up in value. But that's not the case. No, because a lot of good cars sold a lot. There's more available. And some of the charm has been taken away because there's no die-hard fans of it because it's just so common, right?
Yeah.
So, a car that I'd picked years back was the W124 Mercedes E320 convertible.
Okay.
So, I was looking at these with my dad, and you could buy a good one for $10,000. Okay. Now, when I say a good one, so this is 94 to 98, I think was that spread.
Yep.
You could get an E220 version, was cheaper again. It's a 4-cylinder, but you really wanted the 6, the quad.
Those.
Yeah, you wanted the quad cam 6.
Too heavy.
So, I'd missed out on a couple. I went and looked at some, and they were just a little bit down, or I thought one at $12,000 was too expensive.
Yep.
But I jumped on GoNet to have a look at what they're going for in Japan. It's a $40,000 car.
Yeah, that's unreal.
So, now, the reason why I thought that was going to be a classic was because there was no large, long wheelbase, luxury convertible that you could buy that wasn't a Bentley or a Rolls Royce.
Yep.
So Mercedes and W124, just the same as W140, quality-wise, is on par with those two cars. Reliability is better.
Yes.
So in my mind, I was like, well, there's no other product offering that's anything like it. That is going to appreciate in value.
Yep.
I just didn't realise it was going to quadruple in 5 years.
In a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was...
And Mercedes have always been, like, if you look at... Sometimes you can look historically and you can obviously see trends. Mercedes have always built a beautiful, large convertible throughout history.
Yeah.
And they've all gone up in value. They're always a desirable car.
Yeah.
But
no one cared here.
No one cared here. Definitely not. And obviously it would have been very low volume.
Oh, yeah.
There wouldn't have been that many vehicles here.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one definitely I haven't even considered something like that. It's definitely under the radar.
Now, the other Japanese project that I'd like to get up is I've got I'd love to buy like a small van but is big enough to fit motorbikes. Just a motorbike. Oh yeah. Because I've dabbled into motorbikes quite successfully.
Yep.
But it's a pain to go and Uber out and pick it up and ride it back. So sometimes it's easier just to load it in a van.
Yep.
So I'd love to get a van that's like it'd be awesome to get like a Key van.
Yeah.
660cc turbo thing or something.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if they've got the height to fit like a full size.
No, possibly not even the length.
Yeah, so I'd love to find something because I've got an express van, Aussie delivered 220k thing, just a workhorse, Yeah. I had the battery disconnected, and whenever I need it, it springs to life. She's a bit smoky, but I also you're very low in mod cons, no power steering. So even for a 99 model car, no power steer, no air, as in factory no air. Yeah. Whereas I think there will be some...
And those things are hot because you are sitting on the engine.
Oh, yeah, she gets warm. She gets real warm.
Yeah.
So, I want to go find something I found, actually I was going to ask you about this, I found they make a Nissan van in the early noughties called something VD350 or something.
Okay.
Just a 2 litre petrol, but like a Town Ace, I would say size.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
You could probably own one of those for 10 grand landed here, I would have thought.
Yeah, okay.
But then I was wondering, you're probably not going to get, like, the people that are going to buy it aren't going to be able to finance it.
No, and probably the resale, because I like a van, and I've looked at in the past, because there were some very, very quirky Taragos and things like that, to the point where I think possibly in the, I'm thinking mid to late 80s, you could get a supercharged all-wheel drive.
That's so cool.
Tarago.
That's so cool.
Because obviously in Japan...
Estima? Was it called Estima?
I don't know what it was called, because we didn't get them in this country, because really no need, but they were North America and Japan, because of the all-wheel drive for the snow.
Sure.
And they're an incredibly quirky car.
Well, I remember that look. So that 90s Tarago looked like a spaceship.
Yeah.
That design was amazing. Like, if you got a fresh one of those now, that is still a good-looking car now.
I agree. But I know I have looked. Families and kids just ruin them.
Destroy them, yeah.
Yeah, they're not a car that obviously somebody's purchased and put aside in the shed.
Yeah. Do you know what I'm going to drive this Sunday?
Yeah, exactly.
The Tarago.
Exactly. I'm going to get out the Toyota Tarago Getaway Pack.
Some other good vans. The Grand Hiace in Japan.
Yeah.
You know, with the
they do Mercedes do a great van, but I think the Japanese...
Oh, the king.
The king of vans.
The king of vans.
Like, we've got that new one, which I think is Grandvia VX, which is the replacement for Tarago in this market. They're like a $77,000 van, and they've got, plush captain seats and stuff like that in it. But over there, they are everywhere.
Well, they cherish van life over large sedan life. So they are stronger in sedans than what we are here in Australia, but they're even stronger in luxury vans than they are luxury sedans.
Yes.
And I suppose the practicality of it.
I was going to say, they are massively practical.
Yeah.
And I think we as a market, obviously, we've gone SUV heavy.
And dual cab ute.
And dual cab ute heavy. And, okay, I can understand a dual cab ute. They can tow. You can go up the beach. You can still fit people in them. You can still drive them every day if you have to. They are a bit of a, Swiss Army knife in terms of they can sort of do a lot of things in one vehicle. But SUVs do my head in.
I hate them.
They are the absolute scourge. I cannot... Because they are not practical. Because all of a sudden you put them up in the air, so all of a sudden you've lost internal space. You've also raised centre of gravity.
Yeah.
So they don't drive anywhere as good.
Yeah.
They're all based on a sedan or a hatch variant anyway, which drives heaps better, which is more practical and normally 10 grand less to buy.
I just love and having sold them when they really started becoming a popular thing, and the whole thing was like, visibility, you look down on people. Everyone's in them.
Yeah, exactly right.
So are we going to get in this
we're going to
race?
just get huge.
Yeah. Are we going to have those Russian hats? Like, are we just going to be the tallest, the taller the car, the better?
But how's that a selling point in a vehicle? You get to look down on other people. It's just a bizarre.
And then the one thing I thought was semi-practical about it is, the ability to be able to curb hop and things like that. If having a bit of ground clearance, and if you need to do that school run and there's a weird spot, it's easier to chuck a wheel up. Not when you've got 20-inch wheels on it and little rubber bands around the tyres.
Yep.
So you've taken all the advantage of a four-wheel drive. You've removed it.
Yeah.
And you've given it no additional practicality in its place except the look.
Yeah.
That's something I appreciate about the 90s cars. A bit of profile on the tyres.
Oh yeah, big time. How much more comfortable is it?
Why have a sophisticated suspension system when you can just have more air in the tyres? More volume of air in the tyres.
Yeah, exactly right. Or both in the case of some luxury cars like your Mercedes and Lexus and things like that.
I just think, I do genuinely believe that SUVs are the scourge of our time. It's paid for a lot of the cars that we do like. If Porsche didn't have Macan...
Oh yeah, if they didn't have
Porsche
Cayenne,
wouldn't exist.
they wouldn't exist. Yeah, correct.
I don't have to like it. I don't have to like that that view of the world. Like, I just wish that if they just did like a gentle person's agreement and said we're not going to build any of these SUVs because they suck, and no one should build them, then we'd all be in hatchbacks and sedans and if you think about it, we're trying to be conscious of the environment.
Yeah.
Well, trying to artificially engineer an SUV that is 300 kilos heavier than its hatchback or sedan equivalent, and because of the higher center of gravity, because of the rolling mass, because of all those things, we're having to be overly sophisticated in the engine. If you just had a small, light, simple car, we would have addressed a lot of those problems automatically.
Yeah, exactly right.
So yeah, you can't be you can't be out there saying I want to do the right thing for the environment and then drive a diesel,
Yeah.
a 3-litre 6-cylinder diesel SUV.
Yeah.
It's an oxymoron.
Yeah, 100%.
And more moron than oxy.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so if there was what do you think is a modern day car? Sorry, modern day. What do you think is going to be a future classic that's relatively cheap now?
Relatively cheap, future classic. It's a tough one because I think that what you touched on earlier, which was very, very interesting, is that people think classics, cars that are going to appreciate, need to be a really good car in the moment. But oftentimes I think that's not the case, but they can also be too revolutionary for their own good. So they really alienate the marketplace on release.
Yeah.
And
Ford Probe.
I
had this argument with a mate of mine. I think Ford Probe will be like nowhere to the level that the car that I will bring up, but in the days, early 90s, the design of that car was so far advanced. So that car came out before that spaceship Tarago, but if those two cars came out at the same time, people would have appreciated it. So if you had a really nice mint Ford Probe in like a high spec level, that car is better now, will be better received now than it would have been back in the early 90s. So that's an example of what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. So, just trying to...
Well, I'll start with mine.
Yeah, okay, go for it.
I think it's the 7th gen Celica. So the last Celica model, 99.
Yeah, 99 onwards.
Yeah. Now, the reason is that got... everyone hated it. When that car came out, it was for women, it was for gays, it was like, that was the... But...
It's for gay women?
It's for gay women, it's for... Well, no, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. It was the Forester was.
Yeah. But it was... It got such a bad rep because people just decided that front-wheel drive, 1.8-litre sports cars were not cool.
Yeah.
But they're wrong. That car was cool then. The design was amazing. It looks modern now.
It still looks new if you see a good one.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I wouldn't get the yellow. The yellow was big.
Yep. Silver.
Oh, silver.
Silver.
I was going to say red.
It's
I
got
like
you do like anything in red though.
No.
Yeah. But I genuinely think that car, and extremely capable.
Yep.
Very reliable. Good to drive.
Yep.
Actually a nice... in terms of Toyota interior design, they've never been that strong.
Yeah, well, from memory, they had like a digital instrument cluster.
Half digital.
Yeah. But they had like Recaro seats. Yep. I remember driving one, and it would have been like not long after I would have got my driver's license. And I loved it. Yeah. I thought it was unbelievable because it would rev.
Yep.
Handled pretty good. The gearbox was very, very sweet. It was a comfy car. As you said, the interior was a nice place to be.
Yep.
It did look, at the time, extremely hot, I thought.
Yeah.
And as
but you weren't allowed to say it.
Probably not.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Again, it's the psyche that we have in this country, which has changed now, obviously, but you take 1999, everyone would lose their mind with a VT Club Sport, with 185 kilowatts.
Yeah.
Out of a 5-litre engine. But you couldn't say you liked a front-wheel drive, 1.8 litre,
sports
Toyota.
car. And sports cars weren't, I think in Australia, sports cars were always frowned upon. Because we don't have a strong sports car culture. We've had a muscle car culture.
Yes.
But we've never had a sports car culture. Unlike what Europe and especially UK, roadsters and sports cars are really
exactly right. And if you were into sports cars in this country, it was those vehicles.
Yeah.
It was that older English, vehicles. It was okay to have an MG and drive it as a man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because you were an enthusiast, or it was considered a classic. But
so values of those cars now, if you buy like a good 140,000 Ks or something like that, they're about $8,000.
Okay.
But I can see if you could find they'll probably follow the way of that MR2.
Yes.
That'll be a $25,000 car in the not too distant future.
Well, what happens is that people will step to the next vehicle. Like as you said, I think at the beginning of the podcast, that everyone aspires to own the pinnacle of the range. But then you've got to work yourself back because everything continues to go up in value.
Yeah.
So if you want a classic Toyota, and the same thing happens, you look at that MR2 that was 27 grand, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have 27 grand to buy a cool Toyota. Okay, well, what else is cool in a Toyota? Well, what was the car that replaced that? Well, they did have another MR2, which might become a future classic in that little Spider that they released after that. But realistically, the next car is that Celica.
Yeah.
And also, it's the last Celica.
Yeah.
As well. So
it's a gateway. The Celica's a gateway drug to Toyota sports cars.
Yeah, exactly right. But it wasn't that long ago that MR2s were worth nothing.
Yeah.
And now they're worth money. And the same as I think Celicas in general, I quite like the previous model to that as well. But definitely as far as fit and finish and design, that car was light years ahead.
That's the only reason why I picked that one over the previous. So I am a Celica fan. Like they've always been a good car.
Yeah.
But the design of that one and how polarizing it was. I remember just being in that car scene back then, and you couldn't mention that as a cool car without all these stigma attached to it.
Yeah.
Yet objectively, it's brilliant.
Mm.
So that's my pick. So keep an eye. If you see one of those, don't buy it yourself. Just send it to me and I'll buy it.
Lovely.
Yeah. And if it's red, Josh will buy it.
Yeah, exactly right. So keeping on that, I guess that idea of trends, something that, and listen, these have already sort of started to go up a bit because they were a good car at launch as well. So touching back on WRX earlier, and obviously that's the hero car. That was the car we all aspired to own. But Subaru did have a lot of very interesting turbo all-wheel drive offerings that were not 100% mainstream. So there are some very interesting Liberties that are turbo, all-wheel drive. You had that twin turbo in 1999. I think it came out in maybe 1998. B4, they're starting to increase in value. Again, trying to get a really good one. That's the key. And mechanically,
wagon.
I don't know if we got wagons in this country, but in terms of wagons, I think if you get the first series of a GT Forester, those.
Yep.
Again, you'd want it to be as close to stock as possible. I think there are. Again, you'll get the people that, and already they've got a bit of a cult following, but I think that's a car that, as we're seeing two-door STIs easily cracking $100,000, and we're seeing it's not going to be long before 00, GC8 WRXs are going to be a $40,000-$50,000 car for a very, very low kilometre example. I think you're going to have a car that essentially the same platform, more or less the same running gear. Again, I like them because of the quirky, practical nature of it. Sure. Having a station wagon, I think they're a really good car to watch. But again, so many of them have been trashed through the boost cruising days. But if you could get a really good one of those, but also very, very late in the 1980s, they did a turbo, which I believe they called, it was just called an RX. And now it could come in a sedan, but it could also come in a two-door. which is extremely unusual.
A Subaru RX.
RX, yeah, correct.
What is this?
Liberty.
Oh, Liberty RX.
Yes.
Oh, the wedge shaped thing.
Correct.
Yes. So one of my dad's pieces of delivery drivers back in the 90s.
Wow.
He had one, and he was like a rally nut.
Yes.
I think him and one of his mates ended up working for ProDrive in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember driving enthusiastically down the mountain and him hitting a large rock on the side and like the rear,
lovely.
yeah, like the whole axle of the rear was was like sort of crabbed across from the chassis. But
that would have been good for handling.
Yeah, but he obviously there was a lot of aftermarket Subaru bits that you could buy, you can modernise.
Exactly right.
And that's a very good one. Yeah,
but like again, something you would have been enthusiastic about when you were young was rally.
Yeah.
In the 90s, where you had Rally Art Lancers, you had WRX, obviously, we had Sleekers and GT4s and stuff like that. But before WRX, Subaru used Liberties.
Yeah.
And they still had that iconic livery, the blue car with the yellow stickers and stuff like that. But I think a lot of that's sort of been forgotten because the
Impreza came out.
Because the Impreza came out and it really captured the marketplace. But I think that Subaru has got some very quirky models, which they didn't run for particularly long. And as I said, because we got them here in Australia as somewhat of a test market, I think that those cars will be...
Yeah, I think I agree with you there because it's easy to tap into nostalgic memories of those cars, Possum Born driving.
Correct, yeah, exactly right. And that's in this country as well, that's the basis of motorsport, really is the basis of values in this country. So if you look at old Holden's, old Fords, the ones that are worth a lot of money are the ones that have racing pedigree.
Sure.
Outside of that, they're still worth some money, but they're not the meteoric sort of prices that other ones are getting. You can still buy an FX Holden or an FJ Holden.
12 or 13 grand.
Yeah, exactly right. Up to 20 grand.
Yeah.
And what's more iconic than the first vehicle that this country produced?
Yeah.
Yet you want a Tirana.
Yeah, Peter Brock's Tirana. No, not who was it? There was a Tirana that just went through auctions because I put a bet. Oh, I've got to cash in. I'll bet my friend Rodney a bottle of Kraken that I haven't called on yet.
Oh, lovely.
So it was Fred Gibson's, which I don't think won a race. I don't think won a Bathurst, but it was his Tirana, and they thought it was going to crack $2 million. And I was like, nah, what a chance. Not a chance. Because in my mind, what if that car sold for $2 million, what does a race-winning, Bathurst-winning Brock car make?
That's exactly
$10 million?
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, there's no $10 million out there for a Holden race car.
No.
So I said the car is going to be sub $1 million, and I think my friend put 1.6. He thought it was going to be around that 1.6 mark, and I said I think it's going to go for 900, maybe 920.
Sure.
And whoever's closest wins a bottle of Kraken.
Yeah, lovely.
And it went for 960.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
On the nose, pretty much.
Yeah. And I had some rationale behind it, but he's a Tirana nut, so he's blinded by the fact that it's
Tirana. But even very basic Tiranas are worth a lot of money now, even in like four-door sedans and stuff like that. Good ones are 50, 60 grand.
I remember back to the old... So everyone that worked for my dad most of them were car nuts, because the beauty of being a pizza delivery driver is that you just drive all the time.
You're driving, yeah. And Tambo would have been the place for it.
So much fun.
It's a rally stage.
It is basically a rally stage. You visit a lot of farmland, a lot of grassy front verges, runoff. But there were some super cool cars that went through there, like 80s model Nissan Exa turbos, Galant GSR, a lot of Geminis. But one of my mates had a pristine... he always had an eye for good cars, but just couldn't help but ruin them. So he bought... I'm not a big Gemini fan, but it was the last of the rear-wheel drive Geminis.
Sure.
But quite up-spec one. Had nice bumper bars on it, had an upgraded interior in it. Still had the the window, the rear slats on the on the glass.
Yep.
And I think
Venetians.
Venetians,
Yep.
And but I think he wrote that one off, and then he bought for like $350. Bought a one owner. Not a what's before UC Tirana.
Like an LX maybe?
LX Tirana.
Yeah.
Column shift, like old man spec, white with brown interior.
Yeah.
But the thing was immaculate.
Yeah.
Like just the most beautiful car I've ever seen. Spent $350 on it. And I remember driving one day and just looking over on the side of the road, and this thing's just in the dirt. And again, just wrecked that one.
Just ruined it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of those cars, maybe some of the appeal of those cars, maybe some of the prices have shot through the roof because of scarcity.
Definitely.
So, I suppose that a reward for anyone that has lasted this long throughout the podcast.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because we are an hour in, and if your reward is if you were to come across one of these and purchase it, not only will you get lots of enjoyment in driving it,
yes,
but you've just made yourself some money.
Oh, absolutely. Better than Bitcoin.
It's more fun than Bitcoin.
Yeah,
it's definitely more fun than Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But look, shout out if you like this segment. You probably won't. It's fine. It'll keep coming back. I'm sure. I enjoy them. I think that. Oh, if anyone wants to flick us a note on any cars that you'd like us to break down from our critical
love to. Yeah.
I don't want to say roast, like it's not like vehicle roasting. People have done roasting, but
no.
There are some oddball cars out there that people have passions for that we might be able to give you a bit of a potential boost in your
appreciation for the vehicle.
Your appreciation for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or we could just bag the shit out of it. Who knows? Who knows?
That's unlike me, Alex.
No. It's definitely not you. But thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me. Absolute pleasure.
We'll do this again for sure.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Alex.
We'll see you next week for episode 26. See you next RDO.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.